Are you here as a doctor or as a patient?
This video, I am not here as a doctor. I'm here as not as a patient. I'm here as a woman living with PCOS, wanting to share her experience living with it, as this is PCOS Awareness Month. September is PCOS Awareness Month. And for a long time, I didn't want to share my experience with PCOS because I consider it a very sensitive topic because of some of the symptoms and complications associated with PCOS. But in this month, I have decided to share my story because we need to raise awareness about PCOS. There's a large number of women living with PCOS, and because people don't come out to share their stories, a lot of us are struggling, and for this reason, I am here to share my experience so one or two people who relate to it can know that they are not alone, but to also create awareness and so that more research can be done on the management of PCOS and how to improve the lifestyle of women living with PCOS. Take note, I am not here in this video as a doctor. I am here as a woman living with PCOS to share my experience, to inspire, to educate, and to help other women who are currently living with this condition.
So can you briefly explain what PCOS is and how it's affected your life?
PCOS is Polycystic ovarian syndrome, and it is a hormonal dysfunction in a woman's body, and it can affect different systems of her body. Basically, it disrupts the woman's hormones.
What's the general impression about PCOS in our community in this part of the world?
I don't really think there's a general impression because I don't think most people know about PCOS. There are a number of women living with PCOS, but they are not aware that they have it. But also, there are a number of people that have PCOS, but are ashamed to talk about living with PCOS because of the stigma associated with infertility. PCOS is personal because it's a very sensitive topic, especially because it has to do with infertility, which is very controversial in today's world. If you come out online and say, "Oh, I'm infertile," or "Oh, I have 10%, 20%, 30% chance of being infertile," it's very strange to come and put it out there on the internet. So that's why I thought that this is very personal. I don't think I want to share it. And even if I'm going to share about PCOS, maybe I will talk about it from a medical perspective as a medical professional, not sharing my own personal experience. But then there's a reason why this month is PCOS Awareness Month, because there's a lot of research and work that needs to be put into studying PCOS and how it is managed. And if people don't come out to share their stories, then there will be no awareness on PCOS, and there will be no need for people to research further on how we can make lives better for people living with PCOS. And that's why I decided maybe I should share my story. In our society, there's a bad stigma associated with infertility because we believe that once you get married, go and start having children. And if you're struggling to have children, then something is wrong with you. So because of that stigma, people don't come out to share their process, their journey, what they are going through, what has helped them, or how it affected their lives. But it's something that, if actually shared, can actually help more people that are struggling with infertility. But a woman can have symptoms like irregular menstruation, acne, weight gain. There can be some anxiety and depression. She's also at risk of type 2 diabetes. There can also be infertility, facial hair growth or male patterned hair growth, multiple cysts in the ovary, and some other symptoms.
How were you diagnosed with PCOS, and what were your initial thoughts and emotions upon receiving the diagnosis?
I was diagnosed with PCOS about 2 years after I started having symptoms, but the first symptom I experienced was like irregular menstruation or lack of menstruation. And then I saw a doctor, but I was not diagnosed then. But 2 years later, after going through numerous tests and ultrasounds weekly, there was a doctor that was finally able to say, "You have PCOS." I didn't know what PCOS was. I think that was my first time hearing about it. In that moment, I didn't feel anxious. I didn't really understand what it was because I didn't think it was detrimental or could really affect my life as much, because my prominent symptom was just abnormal bleeding. So I was not too worried. I was open to what the doctor had to say about how I could treat it and how I could just like get over that phase of my life.
Were you familiar with PCOS before your diagnosis, or did you learn about it afterwards?
No, I learned about it after my diagnosis. Prior to then, I don't think I had heard of PCOS before. Even when I was going through it, when I had symptoms, I'm sure I was going to Google to search, but I don't think I saw anything related to PCOS until the doctor mentioned that you have PCOS. I still remember what that paper looked like because I was in China and there was a little bit of language barrier. So she wrote it on my result sheet, PCOS. That was the first time I heard about it.
So talking about the symptoms, what are the most common symptoms you've experienced with PCOS and how have they affected your life?
Okay. The symptoms I have experienced have differed different parts of my life. So my initial symptom was amenorrhea. I was not menstruating for about 4 months or so. That was my initial symptom, and there was nothing after then. But when I was diagnosed 2 years later, I had abnormal bleeding. So I was bleeding for over 2 months or almost 3 months. Yes, I was having bleeding, and then my period was not regular. So I'll see for a month, skip like maybe 3 months. It was not regular. Then when I did an ultrasound, I realized I also had multiple cysts in both ovaries, but it was more on my right ovary. Also, I had slight pain or tenderness around my right ovary region, especially when the cysts were bigger. So if I was not on any medication, that area would get bigger and slightly painful. Also, I have a little facial hair. This is also one of the symptoms. Mine is not a lot, but I also have facial hair and some hair below my belly button also, which is one of the symptoms. Also, my test result, my hormone profile, that is a test where they check out your hormone levels. My testosterone was also a little bit high, which is one of the signs that you see in PCOS. So these are some of the things I had.
For most people who don't understand how diagnosis of PCOS is made, can you share as a doctor the criteria for diagnosis of PCOS?
So in order for a diagnosis of PCOS to be made, you must have 2 out of 3 of these symptoms. First is there must be multiple ovarian cysts in your ovary. 2, elevated male hormones, androgen, testosterone is elevated. And then 3, you would have irregular periods. So to get a diagnosis of PCOS, you should have 2 out of 3 in this criteria. For me, I had all 3. So it was definite. I had PCOS. So when it comes to treatment and management of PCOS, I'll share my personal experience. So when I was 16 and I had the period of no menstruation, I decided to go see a doctor. He did an ultrasound scan. He said my uterus and my ovaries seemed normal, but then he gave me a drug to induce menstruation, and after a while I started menstruating, and then he told me I had to go on contraceptives for the next 6 months, which I did. Subsequently, after taking it, the period was regular for maybe 1 or 2 months, and then it ceased again. So that was the initial management for PCOS that I had, and this was prior to my diagnosis. I left that country and I moved to China, and then my symptoms started again. This time, because I had prolonged bleeding, I went to see the doctor more urgently, and I even started taking the contraceptive pills myself at a point because it had already been prescribed to me before, so I just thought maybe I should continue. So I went to the hospital. I had ultrasounds done. I think I did more than 7 ultrasounds. I did over 5 or 6 different hormone profile tests to check the levels of my hormones at different points in China before I actually had a diagnosis made. And this was because every time I went to the hospital, I was seeing different doctors. So every doctor I see will tell me, oh, go and do this test again, because your hormones will have changed between the last time you saw us and this week. So this test was so expensive, especially that hormone profile. As at then, I think it was like, then this was in 2016, it was like 60,000 naira every time I did that test, and I did about 6 of them. I kept on doing the test, and then I got my diagnosis. And then I saw a doctor, and she told me that I would have to get my ovary removed. The cyst had gotten so big and it was causing me pain, and she said that we need to remove your ovary. Honestly, I was not worried. I was not anxious. I don't know why, but I was not anxious. I told my parents about it, told them I had to do surgery and I'll need money to get that surgery done. And they too were not worried about it. And thinking about it now, I feel like they did not understand what was about to happen to me. But then there was a holiday period. It was during this time, end of September, beginning of October. I went for a few days holiday because the hospitals were not going to be doing elective surgery during that period. And then I went and I prayed to God, please help me. And then by the time I came back to the hospital after the holiday, I did another ultrasound and another hormone profile. And the cyst that was the largest at that time had reduced in size, and there was no need for me to do any surgery. Although I saw a different doctor this time, but this doctor said there was no need for me to do any surgery. So when I found a doctor I was comfortable with, I always tried to go to the hospital to see that same doctor. And then it got to a point, because I was a medical student, I just went into the office one time to go find that particular doctor. And I did not see her. So I saw another doctor that recognized me. And I said, oh, I was prescribed this Chinese drug and oral contraceptive pills. And I was told to continue taking these drugs. So I told her that the drugs are finished and I'm still having the PCOS. Like, when am I supposed to stop taking the drugs? And this doctor just told me, like, she just nonchalantly told me, oh, you have PCOS. Just go take these drugs all the rest of your life. No cure. At that moment, I was dumbfounded. I just stood there confused because I was not counseled on PCOS. I had no idea what I was dealing with or struggling with. She just said, take it for the rest of your life. So anyway, I left that day, and I had serious beef with that gynecologist. That even one day in class, she came. We had a gynecology class, and she was the teacher that came to teach us. I was so angry that she was the one that came to teach us. But yeah, I've struggled with the whole management of PCOS, and a lot of women have struggled with it. I've seen a lot of women online talk about how angry they are with their doctors because they cannot really manage PCOS, or a doctor will just tell you, oh, lose weight and eat better. I was already skinny. What weight did I have to lose? So, in fact, no doctor ever had the mind to tell me to lose weight because I had no weight to lose. So I was just told to go and take contraceptive pills for the rest of my life. So with the management of PCOS, there's a lot of controversy around it. And I think that's why this PCOS Awareness Month is so important, because more research needs to be done. 1 in 10 women have PCOS. About 50% of women don't even know that they have PCOS. So a lot of research needs to be done in order to improve the quality of life of women living with PCOS. Some of the complications I've experienced with PCOS is mostly with regards to the side effects of the contraceptive pills that I was put on. There was one contraceptive pill I was on that almost drove me into depression. I could feel myself going the more I was taking that drug. Like, nothing gave me joy. And that's one of the side effects of contraceptive pills. But when I went off it, I started to get myself back gradually. Nobody told me that part. It just told me, oh, go and take it for the rest of your life. But yeah.
So do you actively participate in raising awareness about PCOS?
I have tried in the past. I actually have an Instagram page and a Twitter page whereby it was dedicated for creating awareness on PCOS, but I didn't follow up with it. But on my personal page, I try to talk about PCOS as often as possible to create awareness on PCOS, and I hope to do more, because the number of women that I see that have PCOS and are not aware is alarming. So more needs to be done, and I really hope to do more with regards to PCOS.
How contraceptives help with PCOS, and what are the drawbacks of contraceptives?
Okay, the body has its own way of regulating how you menstruate as a woman, but PCOS is a disruption of the hormonal profile of a woman. So these contraceptives mimic your body's natural way of releasing these hormones. So the contraceptives contain some artificial hormones that can act as your body's natural hormones. So you take it and then your body just believes that, okay, you're going through the normal phases of the woman's cycle. So you bleed when you are supposed to bleed. That's when you go off the pills, and when you get on it, you just continue on the cycle.
So what are some of your concerns regarding PCOS?
I'm concerned about some of the complications of PCOS, particularly infertility and how that will apply to me. So because I have PCOS, I know I might struggle with getting pregnant. So it is a worry that I have at the back of my mind. But as a doctor, I know that there are ways to work around it, but it's still something at the back of my mind. Also, PCOS can cause insulin resistance, and it will increase your chances of having diabetes, which is another dangerous chronic disease. So I know that because I have PCOS, my chances of that is higher. So that's why lifestyle modification is very important for me. I have to live like I'm preventing diabetes. So living a healthy lifestyle to help prevent the complications of PCOS.
What words of encouragement do you have for people?
If you're a woman living with PCOS, or you have any of the signs and symptoms that I have mentioned before, first of all, I want you to know that you are not alone. Like I said, 1 out of 10 women have PCOS, and it can be managed properly, and you will still have children. You can still live a healthy lifestyle and live a fruitful and beautiful life. So don't get discouraged because you have been diagnosed with PCOS. A lot of us have it, and we are very happy. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like it, or if it has helped you in any way, please share it with anyone that you think has PCOS, and give it a thumbs up to create awareness about PCOS, so YouTube can push this video out to more people as you give it a thumbs up, and it's really good for our PCOS awareness. Leave a comment if you have any questions, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.